Hey, how is everybody? Today we are going to do a blog. We have a bunch of women prison advocates together today, and we are going to join in conversation, and we are going to allow you to join in on the conversation and let you know what our concerns are, where we're at with our advocacy, and what we plan to do, and just how we feel about it all. The headliner for this blog is Jodi. Jodi, if you can please take over, introduce yourself and your guest, and I will be in the background if you need me.
Thank you. Appreciate you. And again, thank you for what you do, because without you, we wouldn't be able to have this platform to get more awareness out. And that's our goal. That's our purpose. We got Debbie on and we got Melissa on, and we are chatterboxes, and we got some stuff to talk about. Right, Debbie?
You got it. You got
Melissa?
it. Melissa? Absolutely. I'm right here.
Okay, first things first, let's talk about South Carolina, since we don't see it in the news and everybody's scared to talk. People get put in Facebook jail for posting anything about it and sharing anything about it, so let's talk about it. What you got to say, Debbie? What do you think about what happened, and what are your thoughts on it possibly happening in more prisons? I think it actually has.
Well, yeah,
in another
Missouri,
one, not as many deaths, but there was a riot.
In Missouri, there was a riot. And what's happened in South Carolina is going to be a trickle effect if you think about it. Shortage of staff. Okay. 7 people laid on the floor and bled to death. That'll tell you something right there.
Right.
Florida's trying to cut the visits. Okay, it's going to get hot. There's no air conditioning. The food is getting bad. Medical's getting bad. They're cutting programs. What do you think's going to happen in Florida?
Melissa,
we're going to have the biggest riot.
Melissa, you have more detail on exactly what incited the riot, from what I understand. Is that
Yes.
the case? Tell
Yes.
me, what do you know about how this all came about, where something would become so deadly and just happen to this level of severity?
Well, it seems that there was a package of drugs that was coming in on a regular basis. 2 rival gangs purchased this package together. The reason they did this is so one gang would not take off with the entire drug package. It was a safety precaution. One day it happened. One group took off with the drug package. Why they did this is not clear. I suspect they were just ready for an uprising. So this, of course, created the beginning of the riot. Now, the thing that concerns me is at this point, the unrest in the prison had to be so tremendous. All the inmates knew what had happened. So you cannot tell me the guards were not aware that the drug package was stolen and that there was going to be trouble.
Right. So what was the part about there not being enough staff? Because any visitation that I have seen personally with my own 2 eyes, I've seen many staffers, 10 or more. There's always one person doing this, that, or the other as far as the actual intake of visitors, where they're writing your names down and you go through the kiosk and that sort of thing. But inside, during visitation, do you both see what I see, where there's plenty of staff in there, and there's a lot of people, staff members who are security staff that are just sitting around doing absolutely nothing, and then, just to go to the bathroom, they take their sweet time, or to let you out, they make you stand in a room 15, 20 minutes before they, act like they didn't see you and then let you out. Do you guys experience that?
I have. So now
yes,
when I have
absolutely.
to go... When I have to go to the bathroom, I go right up to the desk and say, "Excuse me, can I have the key?" "No, we have to let you in." "Okay, will you let me in before I pee my pants?"
Right.
And I get up there, they pat me down, they open the door, I pee, I come out, I've got to let her know I'm there, she pats me down, and then I can go sit down.
Have either of you experienced a strip search like me? I'm on my third strip search so far. I'm starting to feel like I need a pole in there.
I have never yet been strip searched.
Okay.
Neither have I.
Well, unfortunately, in Florida, I think we're going to see a whole lot more of it. Don't wear your underwire bras. I know that. That's what stopped them from strip searching me, because I had on an underwire bra that kept dinging.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, well, I wear, like, leggings and a sports bra. I wear nothing that dings. Nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
Jodi, I did.
Yeah.
I did want to say one thing. I did see 2 videos that were smuggled out of South Carolina where the inmates were describing the guards sleeping on duty, reading on duty, betting on horses, numerous activities that have nothing to do with their job.
Right. Let's get back on track with South Carolina. Yeah. And did either of you see that video of how filthy it is in there, looking like the Superdome just occurred,
goodness.
when Katrina had it so messed up in New Orleans?
I know.
Did you see that filth?
I saw that.
It's disgusting.
I cried. The guy was just saying, if you've got family here, help them. If you love your family, help them. Look at this. We're not savages. And I was like, oh, my God. It was so awful.
The smoke is coming up. They're trapped on a tier
what was that?
The first floor, and there's flames coming up. That had to be the most horrifying thing.
What did you figure out what that was? Every time I look at that video, I can't figure out what that smoke is or for what.
They're setting things on fire on the first floor, which is very commonly done during these riots. They love to set fire to things.
Wow.
I believe this makes the sprinkler system come on, which causes even more destruction.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I could only imagine the smell in there with the feces and urine. And why did they have to-go cartons in there everywhere?
Yeah, I wondered about that, too. I think the kitchen might have been destroyed because they obviously broke in there to get weapons. So I'm thinking that might be why everybody was on lockdown and served to-go containers. I'm also wondering if that might not be something the cafeteria just does on a regular basis instead of trays. I honestly don't know about that.
Right. Well, I tell you one thing. Me being a sibling and a sister with brothers, I couldn't imagine that woman who was the sister of one of the inmates that passed away and bled out. She watched him die, and I couldn't even imagine being any type of loved one and watching it as it occurs, and you're trying to call, and you're watching it, and you're calling, and I mean, I already know when I have fear that I know something's going on, but I couldn't imagine watching it, literally seeing it happen before my eyes and can't help. And the time, how many hours was it that these people laid there, and that's why they bled out?
Oh, I think I read 11. There are differing reports as to how long they were allowed to lie there dying. But I do believe 11 hours was the most I heard. 8 hours to 11 hours. That's an entire shift.
Right. And I've also read now, and I don't know if this is fake news, real news. You never know sometimes anymore. I do remember reading on a young man's page who was giving information on his page about the riot, and he obviously, from what I recall, had insider information once I went to his page to kind of look over it to see, okay, do I believe this? But he actually had information saying that more than 7 people actually died. Many more were hospitalized in critical conditions, and that they have not released the reality of what truly was the end result and how many died. I think I remember him saying that 2 people were found in, like, closed-off rooms after the fact.
Yes, they were found trapped and hidden. And also, I've had 2 people comment on my page that the total number of the dead is actually 11, not 7.
That's what I remember reading.
I read that too.
We've seen, yeah. So we're all in agreement that probably more than 7 people died, and they're not giving the public, the general public, true information.
They probably will never get it.
No.
No, they never do. They never do.
Yeah. And anybody that's going to be accountable is going to be only, on one side, those who should have prevented that. Instead, it almost seems like they urge things like this to happen to me, in my opinion.
I believe it.
I think that the guards have everything to do with division, and I think inmates are getting smarter, though. I think they're banding together, and instead of having so many different groups, they're now coming together, and it's pretty much the inmates versus the bullies.
Yeah, I just read that about Missouri. The gangs banded together.
Right.
Instead of being opposite, they banded together to do it because they're tired of it.
Yeah, they're just. It's one thing to go to prison, and as I understand, when someone is to go to prison, they lose their freedom. Okay, they lose their freedom. That means they lose their job, they lose their life in society, they lose living with their family members, wife, sister, brother, cousin, whoever, grandmother. They can't go to a barbecue. They can't celebrate Christmas and have a Christmas tree in the family living room. They lose their freedom. But no one nowhere has shown me where it is supposed to be abusive, neglectful, lack of medical care and treatment, just basically a lack in humanity, as well as torture and harassment and even killing inmates. People see stuff every day being released, with what police are doing with police brutality and unarmed people of any color, not just one anymore. But you see this excessive force thing going on so strong right now just with the police, and you don't see what's really going on inside or behind any walls. And behind the walls is a place that you probably don't want to see, and it's really hard when you are forced to imagine it. Don't you agree, Debbie?
I totally agree. Totally. You just don't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
They're there to protect and serve. You know what? They're protecting themselves and they're serving themselves. That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
It is.
But I mean, if people understood how bad it was, maybe someone, who doesn't even have anyone who's incarcerated, the people that don't have it hit home in some way, they just don't know. They're completely blind to it, and they don't understand there's just no humanity anymore. Like, they're treated like animals, and that is not part of their sentence by any means.
Sometimes when you say something about an inmate, they're like, oh, that's like a country club. Okay. Well, maybe federal prisons are like a country club, but a state prison or a county jail, no way. No way. And we're not talking about people who commit murder and would sit in there and say, if you let me out tomorrow, I would do it again.
Right.
We're not talking about pedophiles. We're not talking about, rapists and stuff like that. We're talking about nonviolent offenders, people who are sitting in there haven't even went to court yet, people that are sitting in there because of non-child support, whatever the case may be, wrongful convictions, you name it. They're nonviolent, and they did not sign up.
People who were deemed guilty by association, that kind of thing happens all the time. You've got nonviolent people, charged with heinous crimes, and yet, their hand wasn't in it, or, but I'm seeing more and more in the news. What is going on? Pedophiles are getting released everywhere.
Well, my son got 15, and he didn't kill nobody or even have a gun. No kind of weapon whatsoever, and I look around today and I'm going, really?
Right.
It's crazy. They pick and choose, I think. And, of course, my son has a mental issue, so they'll pick on him even more because that's what they do. and like I said, my son got 15 years. He didn't say 15 years and be beat, be gassed, be threatened, be harassed, be belittled. Don't call your mother. The next time you call your mother, this is what's going to happen. I mean, he did a crime.
Now they're worried about going to jail while they're in prison.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that the word correctional institution, what happened to correcting behavior, rehabilitating the inmates? We've lost sight of that completely.
Yeah, and they're trying to take away visitation schedule in Florida.
Yes, and I think family members angry as well as the inmates. They're going to have two groups of angry people. Those live visits are the only way family members and friends can monitor the condition of the inmate.
Right. It gives the family members who have to go through the journey that have committed no crime, it gives them a little bit of peace of mind once they have sat with them. Agreed?
And it's also a good support system for the inmate to have people from the outside, especially if they're going to be released back into society.
Right. Now, what do you think about this hearing that's coming? The 31st of May in Tallahassee, they're having the second hearing. And I was so upset because somehow I missed the first hearing and didn't even know it was happening. So easily you can get out of the loop, and I thought I was completely in the loop. But I missed the first hearing because I didn't know about it until, after the fact. And now they have decided to grant the second hearing. There was enough outcry for it. Debbie, you're the one that does videos to promote, people uniting. What would you say if you're doing a video right now, getting people to understand the necessary the necessity of them coming and uniting and showing up for every cause, not just one cause. They may have a group where their focus is on something that is not to do with visitation, but still they should show up in numbers. What do you have to say about that?
My feeling, I don't care what group you have. Like, we have groups out there for women only, for men only, for this only, for that only. Keep your group. Nobody's asking you to give up your group. But if all these groups would unite and have our voices heard, I do believe we can change it. We can change it. We can be our loved one's voice. They're not having voices on the inside. They're waiting for the people on the outside to help them. And the only way we can do that is to join together, band together, and be heard. Unite. That's the thing. Unite. Once you unite, they have to listen. They won't have any other choice. There's no other choice.
What do you think about that, Melissa?
I agree with Debbie. We have to figure out how to make them listen, because Department of Corrections has not cared about us tax-paying citizens and what we think of what they're doing with our loved ones. I'd like to remind everybody that taxpayers pay the salary of prison staff, do we not?
Absolutely.
Yes, we do. It's called We the People, and we the people should take it back.
I think so.
We've let it go. Yeah, we've let it go way too long where the government is taking over. The government works for us. We don't work for them, and that's the time now to speak up and do what's right, because if not, I don't even want to talk about what's going to happen, because I get upset every time I think about it, because it's coming. And they don't seem to, get it. They just, I don't know. Now, the first meeting we had in Tallahassee, I want to say there was about 250 people. About 150 spoke. Now, if those 250 people were in front of a legislator, in front of a senator, in front of the governor. Somebody may listen.
Exactly.
And you have to remember, too, this is election year. Think about that.
Yeah,
yes.
We need more people. We need to get as many people to this hearing at 8:30 a.m. on the 31st in Tallahassee.
Yes, ma'am.
So we got to make sure we keep putting that information out there and advocating for unity and really trying to come together, or it's just going to get worse. I don't know how it could get much worse after South Carolina occurred. But I don't
South Carolina ain't nothing going to be compared to Florida. Trust and believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
And probably every other state out there that's going through the same thing. It's going to be a trickle effect. Like they have this big thing in August coming. What do you think that's going to do?
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing too. I agree. It's going to be huge.
All prisons are going to be locked down. There's going to be riots, and they're going to have to call the National Guard in.
Mhm.
It's going to be. It's going to get scary. Melissa, did you have any other statistical information or any other things going on in Arizona right now? I know you're in Arizona. What's going on there? What's big in the news now?
Okay, we are having a lot of racial tension here. We deal with a lot of people from across the border. Racial tensions are high. It is already 100 degrees here in the city of Tucson. Phoenix is even hotter. Florence Prison, where my son is incarcerated, is closer to Phoenix. They are using swamp coolers there. For those of you not familiar with a swamp cooler, this is just air blown through wood pads that are wet, and the wetness provides the coolness in the air. Okay, if it's humid outside, this doesn't work. It just pumps humid air into the house. If you have swamp coolers cooling an entire building, I guarantee you have everybody in there absolutely steaming, inside and out. It is going to cause problems. The heat is just too serious here for them to be getting away with that.
Oh, and in solitary confinement, too. When I dealt with last summer and reading a letter from my son who was put in solitary in the heat of summer in August, that was one of the hardest letters of my entire life. It was probably the hardest 60 days of my life, knowing that he felt like he couldn't breathe and that it was just so hot and he was so miserable, and I could tell he was just sinking, and writing about how he's being defeated and he didn't understand why God wasn't saving him, and he just felt like the devil was winning. And I mean, the letter itself, I've put it up. I haven't been able to read it again, but I remember how bad I couldn't imagine living it. I know that there was a gentleman that was very sick that my son kept telling him, for 3 days, he needs to go to medical. He can't do this. He was an older gentleman, and it was his cellmate. And I recall him saying, Mom, it was like on the third day that when I thought he was actually dead. So they weren't going to come unless he was dead. He kept asking for help, and they literally took him out because they thought he was dead. So that's terrible. And then in another instance where I read about a gentleman who did die, he had been sprayed, and he was had a condition where that was going to kill him anyway. But when they found him, he was found like at the bottom of his door trying to get a breath of air because he felt like he couldn't breathe.
And he had a Bible in his hand, and he was 21 years old, I believe.
Yes, ma'am.
I can't remember his name offhand, but
that's torture.
Been a lot of that. Yes.
Solitary confinement in this heat. They won't let a dog. It's illegal to leave your dog with cracked windows in the heat. It's illegal to leave a dog, but it's okay to leave a human in a situation that is exactly identical.
I don't get it.
They should
Animals
not have
have more
solitary.
rights than our children and our people. I just don't get it. Don't get it.
It makes no sense how any human can stand by and watch. And I say this, knowing that I have a niece that it is a corrections officer in a male prison, and I have a nephew that is starting his journey as a police officer. So I also have an uncle who is a retired declarated detective. I come from a family, all military, father, grandfather, husband, brother, several grandfathers, family full of military people. And with that being said, I don't know how another human can stand by and watch the suffering of solitary confinement. To me, that is deviant. What I know that they do with excessive force and what you see police officers do, that is deviant. To stand by and take a blind eye, any guards that don't try to stop the way things are happening, to me, that's deviant. So they need to be held accountable too.
Yeah, they're just as guilty for sitting there watching it.
And it's a worse crime than what some people are in prison for.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad that several correctional officers are in desperate need of rehabilitation, as well as the inmates.
Yes, I agree.
And Jodi, I just wanted to point out that we have the two support groups, the one that you run and the one that I run, for mothers out there that get horrible letters like the one you got, that go through this journey. We do not stand alone. There are a lot of us. We all need to unite. But I encourage all you mothers out there to drop in to our places of support. We offer all kinds of support there and all kinds of help. So please visit us.
If nothing at all, use us as a resource to find what you need.
Right. Debbie's on the phone 24/7.
If anything, use the resource. We have resources that we don't have them, but we know of other groups that are geared towards a certain situation you may be going through. Because I found myself in multiple groups years later because I went through this, and then I went through this, and then I went through this. And as I went through different things throughout my journey, I ended up in a group that related to the issue that I was dealing with at the time. And that's how I ended up being in several groups and finding out, oh my gosh, there's a group for almost everything I've dealt with so far. Did you guys find that as well?
Yes,
Jodi, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how joining these groups has helped empower you towards this cause and helped you to overcome so many obstacles.
Oh, my God, just being able to talk to somebody and knowing I'm not alone. Reading someone else's story may be difficult, but at the same time, banding together with other moms and just talking to other moms. I don't know how it feels to be the father or brother of someone who's incarcerated or even the sibling. I know how it feels to be a mother. And to carry that child for 9 months and to go through something like this, it almost broke me. It really almost did. And I say I walk in faith, and God holds me upright. I'm a Christian woman. You don't find me in church every Sunday, but you may find me on my knees at any given time. I think I just startled one of my coworkers the other day. She was bringing me coffee, and then she stepped out real quick and excused herself because I was praying. And I don't normally do it in public or anything like that. But first of all, prayer. That's what got me.
That's the key.
The key element is God, and turning it over to God, because it's a burden too heavy for any human to carry, because that load is impossible for humankind to carry. It is bad, it is ugly, it is the worst thing you could possibly think of, and you will feel the worst thing that you could possibly ever imagine feeling unless you were the one actually going through it. And then you got to think about the fact that I'm feeling this about my son, but he's living it. Right. So getting in the different groups as I started getting the runaround when I was calling the prison, seeing the little harassment going to visit, and how they tell you, oh, we're for you to come and visit. We're all about family, and they feed you this information, and you think, oh, my God, they're here to help, they're here to help. And at the same time, they're doing things, undercutting and stabbing you right in your face and doing the opposite of what they're telling you or emailing you. So if you're emailing and you're getting those nicey emails, understand they're still not going to help you. The only way you can get help is through other people. How can you get help from a system that when they investigate their self, that's who's investigating them? They investigate their self. That's who IG is. They are a part of that system, and they're just the part of the system that does the ultimate top-line investigation. However, they are not
Excellent point.
They are not the end of the road. That is what people don't understand. They are not the end of the road. That is just a barrier thrown at you that you're going to have to deal with. They can seem helpful. They can seem like they're genuinely there caring about what they do. They can tell you that they have kids of their own, but they still don't know how it feels to be you, and they're still in charge of what's happening where your child is right now or your loved one is, and you have no say-so. They could be feeding you a line of BS, and if you want to eat it up, but at the end of the day, they are not your friend because retaliation happens, and we all know about retaliation.
Yes,
and if it wasn't for group,
they all go to the same school. Yes, ma'am, we'll handle that, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, we'll do that. Well, let me give you a little clue on this, and let me help you understand this. And the whole time they're lying to you.
Yeah.
The whole time.
That's why the groups helped me more than because when I went through that, I wasn't in groups yet. I was doing the call, and I was doing this and that, and with the phone and the email tag and the getting the nice letters, and then told to don't ask about this ever again, and even told on the phone by a warden that my son was that every inmate was an animal. A warden said that to me on the phone and caught himself. So he must say it often if he accidentally said it to me. So, there was a group out there for retaliation, I think, that I got into. And Florida Cure was probably the first group I got into where I met Debby. But then, I found prison stories, and then I found No Heat and Air, and then I found Christian mothers who pray for their inmate. I mean, prison reform, prison movement, behind the wall. You got all of these groups, and so there is support. Don't look to other family members to support you, because you could be like me and not have very much support from your family, or be like my husband's family and be very supportive, So there's that issue too. Are you alone in supporting your inmate? Do you have other support, other family members? There's groups that write to inmates who need cards from other people just because there's no support system.
Yes, and there are volunteer groups, and we can always form more. If a bunch of mothers can unite together, we can form a volunteer group and go inside the prison to help. This is probably the best idea and the best way we can work around this upcoming video chat. If they cut out our visitation, I think we're definitely looking at volunteer programs where us relatives go in and can keep an eye on what's going on.
Right. Well, to your nearest county jail or your nearest prison, and the programs and things that they're cutting, we're going to have to do voluntarily.
Yeah, but that's going to depend on your prison, too. It's going to depend on DOC, because they liable to say to you, we don't want you in here.
Oh, they don't want us in there. We're going to have to figure out how.
I'm just saying, because I know a guy who has been going to the Marion County Jail for years. And they just told him they didn't want him coming back. And he's in a church. He does ministry. And they just flat out told him not to come back.
Well, we're going to have to combat that by increasing ourselves in numbers. That's the only way. One thing puzzles me that I thought of this morning, ladies, that is that I realized when I was a child, there are more prisoners, inmates, than there are staff. There are more family members than there are members of Department of Corrections.
Oh, yes.
If we group together and use these numbers as the inmates have done in the uprisings, I think us on the outside as family members can make a huge difference in what goes on in there.
I know there's people out there. I don't know what tie they may have to an inmate or somebody incarcerated, but it's touched just about everybody's life at some point or another.
Yes.
They could be a person who is an attorney or a person who understands administrative law, or there could be a paralegal who has access to information that those of us who aren't versed in that could help. If there are loved ones of people who are incarcerated that have a talent or they have an ability to help in furthering betterment for incarcerated people here, they need to start coming forward. And I think a lot of it, Debbie, you talk often about how people are afraid of retaliation. People are afraid to do something. But it's already happening, whether
they realize it or not. It's happening, whether it's in their food or something they said. One officer actually took a cookie and rubbed on his private area and made the inmate eat it. I mean, come on.
Oh, my God.
Come on. So
that is just sadistic. That is perverted.
Right. So I know a gentleman that was in prison not long ago that every time he went outside the work, to work outside in the yard, and every time he went out, the officer who would strip search him would rub his, his bottom and his,
Oh, my God.
And if he'd come in, he'd do the same thing. And the guy was like, I have to do this because at least when I get outside, I can forget what's happening on the inside. And that's how he dealt with it. He did it for 3 years. For 3 years, this man was doing this for 3 years. But like he said,
and that's a sexual assault.
Right.
That's a crime.
No crap, it's a crime. But I moved to Florida because I'm not originally from Florida. When this all went down with me, I have been told that this is the good old boy state. Get used to it. Sorry, the good old boys need to go because no. If these CEOs were on the street doing this stuff, where would they be?
In jail.
But you're in jail doing it. Where does it make it right? It doesn't.
They're protected. They're a protected class.
Why?
They are.
A lot of them are protected because they have a union. Some of them have a union, and that union lawyer gets up there and fights for that. That's how a lot of them get away with it. And it's called accountability. You have to have accountability for what you do. Like with and I just keep my mouth shut right there. Of course, I will say something I shouldn't.
Okay, well, let me say this. We had a conversation, Debbie. Okay, and in that conversation, we were talking about accountability and this, that, and the other, but we were also talking about how the inmates must have to take themselves to another place when something really negative happens to them or they're in solitary confinement. And there's such a lack of mental health in there along with just regular health care. You got so many inmates that are in there because of their mental illness getting them locked up. And so here's somebody with mental illness in solitary, which makes it worse if they're schizophrenic, I understand. But, I mean, you've got prisons in the Panhandle in Florida, for sure, I know, are filled with mentally ill people that are getting taken advantage of by the inmates and the guards as well.
It happens.
I mean,
all the time.
how do we get the mentally ill? What what can we do to help them? And they're not getting institutionalized; they're getting put in prison. A place where people.
I think the answer. Go ahead, Debbie. Go ahead.
I always thought that, we have so many prisons. Why can't the nonviolent go to one area, one prison? The mentally ill go to another?
Right.
The murderers go to another? I mean,
we need a different classification system in the prisons.
Oh, amen.
As the mother of a mentally ill young man in solitary myself, I've got to tell you, I think they ought to have a separate building, a separate facility for the mentally ill that is properly staffed. Okay, the nonviolent inmates can go to one area, as Debbie was saying. The violent ones need different training than the nonviolent ones, so on and so forth. If we can do a different classification system and get different areas in prisons that are specifically geared towards specific needs, we have a much better shot at cutting down the recidivism rate.
Yep.
I agree. I agree with that too.
Mm-hmm. Just like I want to talk about the food thing. I've said it many times. Every prison has so much property. They could be growing their own food. They could be raising pigs and beef and have chickens and have eggs. You know what I mean? They could do that.
They could farm their land.
Right, but I was told they can't do that because it's called slavery. Then I was told by a CO an ex-CO. She was telling me years ago that did happen, but the inmates themselves ruined it. And I said, what do you mean? She said, because you had some inmates would go out and work and the other ones wouldn't. And I'm like, really? Well, we could fix that problem. We do a point system. The people who go out and work and farm the land and do whatever they have to do, they get points, and they can train it in for their food. The people that want to be lazy and not doing anything, they have to buy their points, and then they can get the food.
Ladies,
but if they
this
don't
is
have any
basic
money,
behavior modification.
What's that, Melissa?
This is what mothers do every day with their own kids. One wants to work, the other doesn't. This is basic behavior modification here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right.
It's simple. It's simple. Like I had to make a phone call today, and it was like, this woman hasn't heard from her son, because I'm not going to mention no name.
Right.
No phone calls, no letters, no whatever. So I call up there, and I'm like, this is Debbie from CBI, Citizens Bureau Investigations, blah, blah, blah. The woman hasn't got a phone call. She doesn't know whether he's getting his letter. She hasn't got the letter. I said, now I have a question. How difficult is that to go to that person and say, do you want to write to your mother? Do you want to call to your mother? And if he says no, you go back, you call the mother and said he doesn't want to be bothered. It's simple. It's simple. Really?
It's sad that, it has to be the way it is. It really is. It's extremely sad. And so that's why you have so many Facebook groups, your organizations, and, for different topics and different issues, because there are so many of them.
Many issues, yeah.
I mean, there's just so many of them. You can't just tackle it all in one day. It's almost as big as the freaking tax code, if you ask me. But tell us a little bit about CBI, Debbie, and where that came from.
Well, CBI came from a friend of mine. Actually, she's my assistant, but she works all day, so.
Right.
She went to visit her son in February, and of course he's schizophrenic and he's allowed visits with no contact. Well, when he got there, his ankles were bleeding. So, of course, she's like, I want to talk to this person, this person, this person. This was February 9th. So since then, she has been trying to see her son. He's, still schizophrenic. He's not doing good, blah, blah, blah. So then we made a lot of calls, and every time because she would have to call on Monday and again on Wednesday to see if she could visit on Friday. Well, she wasn't getting the runaround, so we always did a three-way. So I was always on the other end listening to what was happening. And I was like, no, this isn't right. There's something we can do. So I started calling Lake CI. Then I started emailing. Then I started doing other things. Well, it came to the point where she was actually able to see her son one Friday and hold him and feed him and just have a really good visit on a Friday. The following Friday, the same thing. The Friday after that, she couldn't make it. Then the Friday after that, he's been put in confinement because now he's punched an officer out because somebody took his medication away, but they don't know who did that. Like, really? Really?
So maybe if he would have had his medication, he wouldn't have. I just don't find that he probably directly wanted to punch anyone unless somebody was attacking him.
Let me tell you a little story. I have a sister who is a schizophrenic. My sister was very, like Christopher is, and she actually, I think her daughter was like maybe 5 months, maybe a little bit older. She stabbed her daughter in the leg, and she stabbed my stepmother in the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And she had been in and out of prison and different facilities and whatever, and they finally started giving her a shot. I don't know the name of the shot, but she gets it once a month. My sister, you can have a conversation with her. She's not violent. I mean, she still talks to herself. She still hears voices, but nothing compared to what she was. Right. And that's what we were trying to get for Christopher. The doctor finally calls my friend and says to her, now she's been trying to get a hold of this doctor since February 9th. He just called her like last week. And he says to her, well, we can't do that because DOC has cut funding and that shot's expensive. And she's like, I don't care how expensive it is. My son is in your custody. He's been in there 9 years and 5 months. He gets out December the 20th, and he needs to be stable.
Right.
And he's like,
now it's getting closer, and he's now not getting medication, and now he's in trouble for what, the first time in 9 years?
No, he's been schizophrenic the whole 9 years. She's only seen him. You're right. 3 times when I started calling and doing, and I told them about my sister, and then it was okay, and then boom, we're back. He knows. I'm going to tell you right now, this boy knows, because he did say to his mom that one time, I've been beat so bad, Mom. You don't understand, Mom. And she's like, we'll not talk about this. Let's not talk about this. When he gets out and he gets stable, there's going to be a story there, let me tell you.
So with her and you guys calling, that's where you came up with CBI, the Citizens Bureau of Investigation?
I forgot what I was getting into, She was so,
I brought you back around.
Yeah, thank you. She got so mad and angry. She was sitting here, and she was Miami. She came for a visit. She's Cuban. And she says to me, that's it. We're going to be Mom's Bureau of Investigations. And I looked at her, and I went, what? She said, Mom's Bureau of Investigations. I said, you can't do that. She said, why not? I said, because you're saying Moms. We're supposed to be for everybody. And I go, how about CBI? And she said, what's that? I said, Citizens Bureau of Investigation. She said, that's it, and that's how it started. It started because of her son.
And you work full-time, Debbie?
I work Monday through Friday from 8 till 5.
Advocating for inmates.
Yes. I'll get a phone call. Can you call about this? Can you check this out? I've got phone numbers. I do what I can. I wish
Melissa,
I had a
since
lawyer.
you started, I'm sorry, Debbie, finish.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Melissa, since you started in Arizona with CBI, what's been going on with you? I understand you got something in the attic or something. I don't know.
She's retarded.
I'm fond of. I'm fond of telling you I have toys in my attic and they're playing, which is exactly how I feel around lunchtime every day. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, things are starting to pick up here. I really want to start forming some support groups to get inside these prisons here, especially during this summer, because I am predicting some pretty nasty weather this year as far as the heat goes. And, you know, we have so many incarcerated here. Some of our incarcerated are not even citizens, American citizens. They're waiting to be deported.
And that's a whole nother ball game where
absolutely. And racial tensions here are running very high. You know, this is another story, too, but the guards are very used to putting different races together to see, you know, what happens. And so we've got that we're dealing with. I am really thinking the best way to go around this is to band together and get into those prisons. We can volunteer. We can help teach people to read. Mr. Rutherford, a young man I'm working with now, a rehabilitated inmate himself, informs me that the number of adults that cannot read is staggering. Now, this is an important issue because when they get out, this means they are not employable. So if we can just start from simple things and keep in mind, if we are behind those prison walls, we can do a lot more good and get a lot more word out. And I just want to add one more thing. I really am grateful that we are getting these cell phone videos from inside the prisons, because we certainly were not aware of this. My son has been incarcerated off and on 4 times now from the age of 18 to 32. And I can tell you, in the beginning of his journey as an adult, I had no idea. He was telling me these things, but of course I was thinking he was exaggerating. So now that we do know, we see it on these videos, we need to get together and support. Okay,
and I'm looking at the time, and we're running out of time. We'll come back around and do this again. CBI, Citizens Bureau of Investigations. You'll see it with a state abbreviation, AZ, CBI, you know, in Arizona. They're going to be coming up in other states if another state wants to join in. We've got Mom.
Yes, California wants to come in. She called me tonight, and she's lost your contact information, Jodi.
Okay. Mom's on a Mission is a Facebook page you can go to get started. But find your way. Find a place to go if you need help dealing with your journey. I can recommend so many different places, but one of the places you can start, like Debbie and I did, was Florida Cure, if you're in Florida. But it's a national organization. It's everywhere. Look at your Facebook groups. Do a little search in the search engine of Facebook. Behind the Walls is one of those groups who's recording radio shows like this. And so tying it up, I'm going to go ahead and let her take back over, but, you know, we'll come back and do this again, ladies?
Yes. Thank you.
We need awareness out there for the inmates. We need help. We need support. We need to unite. That is our mission.
Yeah.
All right. That was great, ladies.
I told you we could talk.
That was really good. I enjoyed it. If you guys want to go ahead and send me some pictures, and I'll get it up for you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. And please send me the